Hello and welcome to the Ion Canon podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld podcast network for in-depth commentary and discussion on lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I am joined all the way across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
Doing great. Doing well.
Right on, right on. Looking forward to our show today. Mon Mothma. That's the show. Okay. Also some Resistance. I'm going to talk about Fan Expo Canada, some other topics, but really it's Mon Mothma, main topic here. YouTube viewers can see we have a guest making his Ion Canon debut. It's Mr. Jordan Schaefer. How you doing, Jordan?
I'm fantastic.
You're fantastic.
I'm not at all tired from being at work for 10 hours. Not at all.
That's fair. That's fair. Thank you for making the time to join us in that case. Join us from a third corner of the continent down in deep in the heart. Don't mess with it. All right.
Don't mess with it.
Don't mess with Texas. Anyway, quick plugs on the outset. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Ion Canon Pod. Also check out our Spotify feed where every single episode of Ion Canon is not live, but it is up there every Monday night after the show, and either Thursday or Friday. My weekly comic book review. Tractor Beam was great to get back to it. Got 3 books this past week, I believe, and then got some more books coming up. It's always down the pipe. Okay. First of all, let's get to this bit here. Resistance Remembered. I think this is a initiative going on with multiple just multiple podcasts. I forget who specifically, but that is a show that I know, Joel, you specifically love, and as a resident sequelist here, #sequelist. So Joel, I'll let you take it away, talk about Resistance, and then Jordan, if you want to jump in and talk about Resistance as well.
Oh man, I mean, I love Resistance. I'm lucky enough that it appeared on Disney Channel. That I was able to watch it at 10 o'clock at night. Perfect timing for me. No, it's not for everyone. For me, it's like, perfect timing to be able to watch every episode. I did reviews of it with friends, and that is a show that proves that you can have a show that's aimed for younger audiences, but dang, does it not tell some of the most probably mature stories I've ever seen in Star Wars. Like Tam's whole story, oh man, it's like, it was so real. Like Resistance was probably like the most real. Oh, bless you. It was like the most. Bless you again. Was like the most real Star Wars. And I mean by real, I'll just say it came out through 2017, 2018. No, maybe like 2018, 2019.
Somewhere around
and
there,
like it felt like the Star Wars of its time. And I mean that in the sense like I felt like it was covering things that were very prudent in 2018, 2019. I won't get into details, but Tam's story was very much like that. I really love the characters. I really love Kaz and Tam and Yeager and all the rest. I love the location. I love the fact that it is one location, one central location, and we stick with it. So I really got to feel like I knew the station. I wanted to say it was Space Stations is my favorite shows. DS9, Resistance.
This isn't even a space station; it's a water station, right?
I know. Well, that became a space station. It flew in second season. And just overall, I felt it was a really fascinating story, and I just really loved it. Again, younger audiences, but it had probably some of the most mature themes and ideas and storytelling for Star Wars animation at the time. So I really loved it. But Jordan, you wanted to be here to talk some Resistance. What's your story with the Resistance show?
The fact that it's the best thing ever made since sliced bread and since Betty White, actually. So it took me a while to get into Resistance because I gave in to the hate of the social media hate, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna waste my time and watch something that's not great. Plus, I think it was on Disney XD, and 2017, 2018, 2019, I was in college, didn't have cable. I was too broke to pay for cable. I still refuse to pay for cable, actually. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll catch it on YouTube or something. If they ever put it on YouTube or somebody puts it on YouTube or an illegal streaming service.
One of those.
Whenever it came out, whenever they decided to put it on there. But Disney Plus came out and they put both seasons on Disney Plus. So I was like, okay, I guess I will check it out because I was waiting for The Mandalorian to come out. and I was like wanting to watch some Star Wars that I had never seen before. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. And then I watched it and I was like, this is so fun. My thing is Resistance is fun. It's, like we said, it's for younger audiences. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I, ended up finishing half the season in one day.
Nice.
I was like, damn. I mean, dang. Sorry, y'all know I can cuss a little bit, but yeah, that's kind of how I like got into it. Loved all the Poe cameos in it. It was just a good show, and I like how it tied into things that happened in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. I think the opening of season 2, they're like discovering they're like on the Dreadnought or some First Order ship that had got destroyed by the Resistance, and that was really cool to see because they destroyed it in The Last Jedi, obviously, and then even in season 1 where you hear Hux giving his speech, I was like, oh, so it's like that connected to the sequels. It's like in there, so that was pretty cool to look at. Plus, you see they make references to Kylo Ren's rise to Supreme Leader by the end of season 2, which was also pretty interesting to watch.
He appears in the last episode. Actually.
Yeah, it's just a fun show, and I am actually currently in the middle of rewatching it, so I'm having fun. I'm having a fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I think it's a good comment, by the way. Resistance is a great form of media that shows a Star Wars show can be just as great and beautiful, even without a Force sensitive as the lead or main plot of the story. Very true.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'm going to keep that up a little more because it's something I don't think about, right? When I'm watching this show, I'm just along for the ride. But it's true. Kaz, he isn't special. He's actually kind of dopey and pretty darn ordinary, but very much a character kids can relate to. Okay, that's getting in the way of Jordan's face there. Kids can relate to. Us normal folks, I guess we're kind of normal. Can relate to folks who
I don't know. I can relate to being the chosen one.
Like, exactly. Like,
I'm an all-powerful being, so
yes, exactly. We know. Well, thanks for gracing us with your present. Just folks who maybe not as super hyper competent. The things we try to do, we do our best, but the fun, the hijinks, but like the moments both of you brought up, with with the character who I'm blanking on her name now. Shoot,
Tam,
yeah, thank you. Tam, defecting to the First Order and trying to make the galaxy great again. Remember Dom pointing out that line is, oh, they're going there, they went there, and this is interesting. This is my first part of the memory of this. My first appearance on the Kazuda cast was for that episode where we re-encounter her. I think it's Tora's mother ends up and is captured and ends up running into Tam on that Star Destroyer. Just engaging those issues. I mean, the way Star Wars does best, the way all sci-fi does it at its best. And then, you mentioned, I mean, the one must-watch moment of Kaz seeing his home planet be destroyed. I mean, it is, it's Leia and Alderaan. It's Kaz and Hosni and Brime, right? Giving that context, giving the emotional weight, giving the emotional context to it that, frankly, Force Awakens didn't really do as well. And so, definitely worth checking out if you haven't. I mean, yes, if you're watching this podcast, then maybe chances are you have, but give it a shot. If it's not your thing, just wait a few years, and if you have kids around, then I kind of be my advice sometimes to my brother, for example, is wait till my niece is about 7 or 8 and then watch it with her. But maybe not. I could be wrong about that. Not everyone, people will appreciate it on its own terms. So
people see cartoons and think kid stuff, and it's like, cartoons are probably the most mature things out there right now. It's
true. Although, I mean, there's something to be said for Resistance doing a great job of being skewing younger and doing a great job of being playful, but as a way into talking about deeper themes and deeper ideas. So you know, that's Resistance. Definitely worth having a full episode on that one day, maybe kind of to celebrate its anniversary of it coming out whenever that is. So yeah, one thing I will move on quickly here, kind of our week in Star Wars. I of course went to Fan Expo Canada this past weekend, and that was great. That was fantastic. Dom and I on Thursday hijacked the Star Wars Underworld main show, kind of partway through, just talk about what Fan Expo is, what's different about this year. It's the first time a full size convention has happened in Canada for the last 3 years. I mean, we've had conventions that are their full size, so Toronto Comic Con in March, but Fan Expo Canada probably broke records. I mean, it rivals in terms of numbers. It rivals San Diego, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of a harrowing thing to be in those crowds, but definitely enjoyable. I was non Star Wars folks. I was able to see where the panels were, or the Q&As were, Brent Spiner and LeVar Burton and Sean Astin. Those were fun. Saw Katie Sackhoff's Q&A, and obviously she talked about Battlestar, and I guess it's called the Afterlife, Second Life, whatever it's called. I'm gonna check that out on Netflix. But of course, we now know her primarily as Bo-Katan, and she said something very interesting. You know, she's definitely schooled in the Dave Filoni art of the black box, of not even giving a hint of anything plot wise. She did say that, you know, she was asked, "What's your favorite Mandalorian episode?" and she said it hasn't aired yet. It's in season 3, and nice. So that's exciting. That at least, I mean, going by the trailers, going by everything we've seen got built up from seasons 1 and 2, especially the end of season 2, going to have a pretty prominent role for Bo-Katan going forward. So that's exciting. So able in the comic, Ali was able to talk to Steve McNiven, who did the kitchen sink variant of Charles Soule's number 25. Definitely was glad to get his signature. Chatted with him about it, just his process for layering on different characters and drawing different things, and being told that that Tarkin's hairline wasn't severe enough, so they needed to make it more severe. And also ran into, also in Comic Alley, Toronto's own Megan Wong, who I will ask to come on the podcast sometime soon, and how she, she's of course has number 2 of Hyperspace Stories coming out. She did the art for that. She told me, I won't betray any of the details, but she told me she pitched a story to Dark Horse for Star Wars, for Hyperspace Stories, for her to both write and do the art for. And that's something we haven't done in Star Wars, but something she does in her creator-owned book for Dark Horse. So that I hope that happens, because it'll make something new and different in Star Wars comics, just in Star Wars, any kind of visual media, where you don't often have the author and say the director of photography, or even the director, being the same person. Here in this case, it would be the author and the comic artist being the same person. So also incredibly friendly person. I recommend you go say hi to her when you can. Lastly, sorry, one more thing. Mention the DIY Heroes Journey panel with F105 and a friend Kareem, new friend Alia, talking about the hero's journey, and Din and F105 and his music, and Kareem and Alia's cosplay, and Alia's pottery as well, and representation. Kareem talked about Miss Marvel, and that was really great as well. So that hopefully Dom is we're busy working away on getting the video of that maybe up. So check that out. Okay. Yes. Look
at this team.
Thanks, Anna. We'll try not to go through. There we go. Lastly, I don't know if either of you guys were able to see Rogue One in IMAX.
I did. It was amazing.
Yeah. And of course the Andor behind the scenes clip. So yeah, Jordan, I'll throw this to you. What do you think of both the behind the scenes and the extended clip, and just seeing Rogue One in IMAX again?
The extended clip was great. I was like, okay, yeah, this was gonna be just as amazing as I thought it was gonna be. Perfect. um, I wasn't paying too much attention to the behind the scenes part because we were trying to find our seats. We showed
Fair
up
enough.
kind of late because that's what people who look like me do. Um, and but we watched the scene and it was fine. The movie itself obviously was fantastic. Seeing the Darth Vader hallway scene in IMAX, there's just something special about it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like it was
Mhm.
chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. Chef's
Mwah.
kiss. So, yeah, I mean, I loved it. The behind the scenes. Well, for the clip, it's longer than what Star Wars.com and the YouTube channel released. It goes past it to show how Cassian kind of accidentally joins up with the rebellion or the wider Rebel Alliance. He's caught in a firefight with some Imperials, and yeah, that was exciting, and it shows how exciting that's going to be. Behind the scenes thing. One of the things Cassie or Diego Luna says is the way it commits to the political viewpoint and perspective, and it commits to the experience of people who are migrants who are not or are homeless in many very layered ways, are displaced, and so obviously won't look to even the Republic or the Empire to be to be their home, to be the system that they trust, and so clearly turn to trying to dismantle that system and find the holes in it, and be able to walk right through and steal this little part because the elites are so stuffed up with their own self-interest. So I'm like my first thought after seeing it. So my before this was announced, like, okay, spy war, interesting. I turned to Dom or turned to not Dom Kareem when I'm watching this right after and said the show can't come soon enough. September 21st can't come soon enough. So
Some of us has been saying that since the day they announced it.
I know. You were right, Joel. You were right.
This one's gonna be the best one. I'm putting my money on it now. Probably the best Disney Plus show we've gotten.
It's looking like most consistent, especially given Kenobi wasn't as consistent, and Clone Wars wasn't season 7 wasn't as consistent.
Watch out! Don't come for the Clone Wars.
Oh, I love it. I'm wearing the shirt. And Siege of Mandalore is my favorite. Siege of Mandalore is my favorite 2 hours of television. But the everything this show looks like it's going to start to say, like you mentioned with Resistance before. September 21st cannot come soon enough. All right, that's what we got for Eyes on Screen. Joel, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Who is Mon Mothma, and why is she called the Chancellor here?
Have you ever heard the story of Mon Mothma, the Chancellor? The story the Empire wouldn't tell you. I'm kidding. Okay, well let's begin, because Mon Mothma is actually a really fascinating character in the history of just the Star Wars franchise. So the weird thing about Mon Mothma is she's one of those like weird, I don't want to say late additions in the sense of like, oh, she was put in last minute in the movie, but like one of those like weird late additions in the original trilogy, in which I feel George was like trying to really do a lot of I don't want to, not backhanded, that's not the right word. I like backlogging world building with the original trilogy, and they're like adding a lot more aliens to the Rebel Alliance, adding Akbar, and then all of a sudden here's this lady in the white robes and the very reddish hair coming talking about how many Bothans died to bring us this information, and that's Mon Mothma. She appears once in Return of the Jedi, and that's it. And a lot of her lore and backstory comes from the novelization, where it's like, oh, the Rebel Alliance is made up of these various cells that all came together. You had Bail's cell, you had Mon Mothma's cell, and it really kind of recontextualizes what people probably thought of the rebellion at the time, which is like, oh, they thought, oh, I thought Leia was the leader of the Rebel Alliance, so why add this character? There's sort of a debate to be had about what that does for Leia in that movie itself, but then when the expanded material came, they just stuck with Mon Mothma, and then heir of the Empire later, she is the chief of state of the New Republic, because the term Chancellor didn't appear for a long time. And then she kind of appeared in several books as the chief of state of the New Republic until she retired. She actually got poisoned because someone threw poison at her.
Yeah.
And then Leia became the next chief of state. Then she died a couple of years later. Did not see the Yuzong long, or it happened to Jason Solo at the time. And then when the prequels came out, obviously George kind of went back to that character a little bit with those Mon Mothma deleted scenes in Revenge of the Sith, kind of showing, we're gonna set up the Rebel Alliance. They got deleted, sadly, but they stuck with that character and they stuck with that lore.
Mhm.
And then when the reboot happened, they stuck again with Mon Mothma not only being the Chancellor now of the New Republic. They decided the New Republic to bring back the term Chancellor. But continuing with Rogue One obviously being her kind of reintroduction to the world of like, oh yeah, she is, as the lore has always stated from Legends, and maybe even just going back to Lucas lore, you could argue this, that she is the official leader of the Rebel Alliance, along with obviously Bail Organa and Garm Beltless at the time, who represented Corellia.
Right.
He's kind of got replaced by Saw Gerrera. I won't get into that; it gets confusing. But long story short, Mon Mothma's canon and legend stories aren't that different. She is one of the main heads of the Rebel Alliance and kind of I don't want to say call her a figurehead, but she's the official leader of the rebellion, along with Bail and a couple others who kind of made the core of Alliance leadership at the time. And it's just really interesting to me that she has stuck around so long, and kind of this character who, again, appears in one scene in Return of the Jedi, just one scene in Return of the Jedi, and then has become like this big, almost not proliferary character who has kind of grown and expanded, and obviously we're going to see in Andor really soon. So that is like the basic summary of Mon Mothma. But I'm going to throw it to Jordan because he's our guest. But Jordan, what's your history with Mon Mothma, the character? When did you kind of learn about her? What kind of sparked your interest? And why is she your queen / chancellor?
She's my queen because I said she was. That's why.
Of course.
No, I just always found the character very interesting. My knowledge is very limited on her. It only goes like as far as like the movies and some books, and then like Rebels.
Right.
But I was just like, she's great. And she never ages. Like she looks the same age all the time. But what really piqued my interest was the deleted scenes in Revenge of the Sith, was when her and Bail and Padme were like, you guys want to form a rebellion maybe if things go to shit?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. So I always found that interesting, that she helped kind of spearhead that movement. And then years later, she sees Padme's children. Everyone always talks about, oh my God, Anakin's kids. But like Padme literally pushed them out of her stuff.
Out of her body.
I'm so sick of, oh my God, that's Anakin's daughter. That's Anakin's son. Like Padme's not right there. So yeah, that she's plus, any reason, any excuse to stand a woman in Star Wars, I'm gonna take it. So
of course.
Yeah.
So, Matthew, on to you. What is your history and relationship with Mon Mothma? And did you know as much as any of this little notes I told you about, like the legends and her origin, out of universe wise?
Yeah.
Well, within universe.
First of all, that's a fantastic point about Padme. I mean, because what comes up in on paper, we're going to mention a little bit later. What comes up on paper is she's a major mentor to Leia. There's in The Princess and the Scoundrel, it talks about how Leia, Mon Mothma sees her as a little sister, and so to see that, okay, almost or like a niece, right? If Mon Mothma and Padme were so close, that no wonder she. I mean, I don't know if she knew Leia's origins or not. I mean, if Mothma and Bail are so close, then also, I mean, that's the more direct connection there. I mean, primarily, I mean, the whole murky thing about how she gets poisoned or whatever. I don't know.
That was legend, so
Yeah, legend stuff. Yeah, I mean, I definitely. So the theme that emerges with her is, on the one hand, she's very much um, an agent of action, right? Like Jordan, you're bringing up how in the deleted scenes she leads this coalition of 3,000 or whatnot. She tries to propose these constitutional amendments to the would-be emperor. Good luck. But yeah, so she's and then of course, when we talk about rebels moving forward, when she becomes the emerging leader of the alliance, I mean, in my mind, I have that moment in Rebels. She's on the Ghost Bridge broadcasting out that speech where she renounces her Senate seat and declares war on the Empire, and it's a really spine tingling goosebump moment, and yet we also see her in Rogue One talking about Saw Gerrera and how his methods are just not in line with the rest of the Rebel Alliance's goals, and and so she's also an agent of institutional continuity and of looking towards what are we going to build for the future. And I know Saw Gerrera sees her as a sellout, sees her as someone who's willing to compromise by trying to be too passable or peaceable rather. And yeah, it's a fascinating tension, that the way they use story to express it, because they could just have her just say these things, but instead, clearly, I think about Leia, Princess of Alderaan, where she she's working with the Organas, and I think this is Brea saying this, but also Mon Mothma's there, and they're trying to influence Panaka to influence Palpatine, and then of course probably Guerrero's partisans assassinate Panaka. So how that. So, yeah. So that.
Okay.
No, you go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Go for it.
It's interesting that theme, though. It's actually something that Heir of the Empire, the original Legends book, actually kind of starts. I'm not sure if this is something that Zahn got from his notes from George when making that book or not. It's like, hey, what's this up with these characters? But the idea in Heir of the Empire, at least, it's like the three big rebel leaders in Legends. Again, this is Legends, are Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and this Corellian guy called Garm Beliblis. And the idea is, Garm Beliblis, he's kind of a Saw Gerrera-ish type character, although he's a senator, so he's a little less edgy. But he's kind of like, let's push against the rebellion. And Mon Mothma is a lot more, let's be careful here. We don't want to, go too far. And Bail's kind of the moderator between the two. And then when Bail dies, Garm Beliblis goes I'm going to start my own rebellion. And I don't trust you, Mon Mothma. You're going to become Empress one day. I don't trust you. So he's like, I'm out. That obviously his own ego talking, and it never happened. So it's kind of interesting. Sort of like that idea in the book is like you got these two kind of competing ideologies of rebellion at the time, and then obviously Garm comes back to help against Thrawn, but that's a whole other thing. But it's kind of translated into canon now, where you do have Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, Brea, and obviously Saw kind of all coming in with their own ideas about rebellion. I think I remember in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, I want to almost say Bail's almost the more timid of the group at the moment in this version, canon version. He's a little bit more, maybe we should play it a little more safer. Mon Mothma's a little more aggressive about things. And then obviously we got Saw Gerrera's just
burn it all down.
Mow it all down, people.
Yeah.
And in Rebels, that sort of dichotomy is there as well. With Mon Mothma's, Saw Gerrera's your alliance is all timid. The Empire's not going to be playing by any rules. And he knows it because they're building the freaking Death Star. And I've always felt that kind of the idea is maybe by the end, it's not that Mon Mothma's right, Saw Gerrera's wrong. I feel like the rebellion kind of eventually finds the middle ground of we can't fight by the Empire's rules. The Senate's obviously going to get dissolved, and Palpatine's building his Death Star here, so it's not like we can just peaceful protest, man. If the Empire's response is blow up the planet, kill them all. But obviously, I think Mon Mothma also reins in Saw Gerrera's more radical means of sort of just burn it all down without any who, what, and howler. So I do find that theme has carried through with her character. My Siri turned on for some reason. But not moderation. Like she's not a centrist in a sense of like
No.
modern political centrism, where it's like half measured. But I think she is more tactical in her methods and trying to not just informing. Like even this latest Star Wars comic, she was like, "We attacked the Imperial parade, but we didn't kill any civilians, so we were careful, but we weren't." We weren't timid, and I think that's always been kind of Mon Mothma's, difference between like her and say Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely has a much clearer eye for optics, right? I mean, in that the whole point where, we didn't kill any civilians. Leia, Princess of not Princess of Alderaan, the Princess and the Scoundrel. She's very much aware of what are the notes here? She's very much focused on allying worlds and consolidating and securing supplies and fuel. And the only way she knows to encourage Leia to take this vacay with her new hubby is to say, look at the optics of Leia Organa going on a cruise on the Halcyon on this newly privatized, newly liberated star line. So yeah, there's that side of it, but also it's interesting you mentioned Bail being the more timid, because Bail's the one who keeps his Senate seat, and that might be a tactical thing, right? Mon Mothma, she resigns her seat. Chandrila is now without a senator. It still survives, but Bail, he never actually announces his seat. He's a senator until there's no Alderaan left, and so I mean, there becomes an Alderaan. There's becomes like the exiles of Alderaan that Leia ends up and Evan Verlaine ends up taking charge of. But yeah, it's like the point about being tactical.
Oh,
so yes. I'll just say the point about being tactical and being strategic. Yeah, maybe that's a better way of putting it, and not so much because she does. You're right. She does end up wanting to destroy the Death Star and the second Death Star and saying we're we're gonna kill the Emperor on the second Death Star. And so it's true. Like she's put into her corner, maybe, and if she wanted to be a pacifist or not necessarily a pacifist, but someone who cares about the preserving the institution, she knows that there just isn't a possibility for it. Jordan, you had a question, go for it.
Yeah, I got a question. It's still on the same topic, but like kind of. I'm on too much Star Wars social media. I watch too many videos. I've listened to too many podcasts. Why is nobody talking about the return of former Chancellor Valorum? I literally
because it's not Chancellor Valorum. It's somebody else.
It's not?
No, it's somebody else.
Are you sure?
Like you're talking about who she's talking to in that scene in the trailer?
Yes, because it looks like him.
It's someone else.
I know. It's not.
And I asked my friends. I was like, "Is that?" And they said yes.
No, they're wrong.
Unfortunately, no, because they if you have the description subtitles on, it says somebody else's name.
I don't believe you.
I mean, it could be bait. You're right. It could be a bait and switch. You never know.
I think it's.
But actually, I can tell you something interesting, Jordan. So this is another difference between Legends and canon. In canon, we actually don't know what happened to Chancellor Valorum, but in Legends, he died because he got assassinated during the Clone Wars. So
it's him.
Yeah, it could be bait and switch. It'll be interesting. It would be very interesting.
And would be honestly, so.
I mean, because she's the one. He's the one. She's saying all this stuff about. And we'll get to this at the end, but all the stuff about how she's not considered a threat, and so she's using that flying under the radar as a very helpful distraction to actually be a threat. So maybe, I mean, who knows? I mean, Valorum was this lame duck chancellor because the bureaucracy and the Senate had a lot more authority, a lot more power then. So that'd be interesting. I mean, it'd be great to see just a bit of an aside, but good to see some sort of legacy of Valorum come
not
back.
Your shame and embarrassment.
Maybe. Yeah, and just
I don't know.
So
we'll see on September 21st. It can't come fast enough.
It's true.
I know. But that'd be a good way to transition into when has Mon Mothma appeared? Where in the world has Mon Mothma showed up? And I guess we can start with her on-screen appearance. Obviously, as I said, she's a character. She's a character who before the new canon really showed up, she's more of a character like if you're into the nitty gritty of Star Wars, like we all are, you would have known about her because again, she only shows up in one scene in Return of the Jedi, one scene, and then she never shows up again. Admiral Akbar has more screen time and more of a character arc than Mon Mothma did in Return of the Jedi. So you got to be in the weeds to know who Mon Mothma is. She probably would have gotten a bit more to do in the Revenge of the Sith deleted scene stuck around. Just even like Mon Mothma, it's like I'm sure the diehard fans would have known about it, and then maybe people would have made connections. But her real big on-screen appearance, and probably the thing people recognize her probably will for the most, is Rogue One. If I'm remembering my order of how things happened, then Rogue One. When I remember when I watched the Rogue One teaser trailer for the first time, I saw Mon Mothma there. I was like, oh dang, this movie's gonna be something special. Because like we could have easily just ignored it, say, oh, it's just the Rebel base. Here's some new Rebel characters. Like, no, they actually took the time to say, no, this is our main Rebel base. Here's our leader, Mon Mothma, from the movies and how the lore is how the lore works, using lore to build your story. Obviously, lore should never affect story too much, but it's a good tool. It's a tool. Lore is a tool for a good story. And I'm like, oh dang, they're really doing a deep cut. And that was her first great appearance by Genevieve O'Reilly, of course, returning for that character who, by the way, I love the fact, like, yay, they're making up for the fact they cut out all her scenes and she gets like a little mini character arc. And then afterwards she appears in Rebels in season 3 and season 4. And I think Andor is her next big appearance in terms of the screen material.
So also she does appear in Clone Wars.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and she's, I mean, it's partnering with Bail, with Padme on, we could say in our world, more progressive policies, more egalitarian policies. I from what I recall correctly, she does express concern about Palpatine's rise to power, about his consolidation. But yeah, by and large, she's a senator. She's there as part of Bail and Padme's crew, their group. So that gives more context. And of course, Clone Wars done after, but it gives more context to what we see later. Was talking about with her being a mentor to Leia. That also, especially Bail, but also, again, it's a great point you made before. I want to repeat it, that she sees Padme's kids, and especially Padme's daughter, also in the Senate, taking over from Bail's seat. So, so she's there in Clone Wars.
That's Padme's daughter.
No, that's the thing. She does know she does.
Why not?
I mean, maybe you never know.
She deserves to know.
Well,
after all the rudeness I found out about Captain Punaka and how he became a moth and just let Naboo go to shit, upset.
That's actually something that I actually don't think any of the paper stuff, and we'll get to the paper stuff later, but you brought this up now, it's really covered. It's like, oh yeah, Mon Mothma should know that. I mean, the thing is though, I remember in the Queen's book, she heard Padme, like they're friends, but I've never considered them like super close. Like they aren't like. I've always felt she was more friendly with Bail. Like obviously, Padme respects Mon Mothma quite, but I've never thought of them like they're not tight. Like Bail and Mon Mothma, they're like this. They're tight. Like they're my political buddies. I always felt like Padme was more like she's a friend of theirs. She's a colleague. But I never got the vibe they were close.
I mean, they're definitely aligned. Yeah, I mean, I could say she suspects. Probably, but I mean, it's
women always know everything about each other. Let me stop. I'm gonna get so canceled. I'm sorry.
Well, no, that's a good point. I mean, there could be things we don't see, right? We don't see the relationship between Padme and Mon Mothma. I mean, Obi-Wan knows. Obi-Wan knew before anyone, before he had to be told. So it's possible. I'll grant you that it's possible. Again, the more direct thing, she absolutely knows that Leia is Brea and Bail's daughter. She's at in Leia, Princess of Alderaan. She's at the ceremony where Leia is crown princess of Alderaan. Like basically a goddaughter and basically her godmother and her older sister. So there's that lineage. But I mean, just like again that moment in Leia and Princess of Alderaan, Panaka is seeing Leia in Padme's clothes, and he does this double take of
you see a ghost, don't you, bitch?
Yeah, pretty much,
know.
right?
I know.
And so, there are ways of knowing without literally knowing. I'll give you that.
Oh. But Jordan, I'll throw it to you. Back to Mon Mothma on screen. Are there any particular moments from any on-screen things, like any favorite scenes you have of Mon Mothma that you really like from Rebels, Rogue One?
Yes.
Okay.
When she got bucked with Saw Gerrera, because she was like, Saw, I'm trying to be peaceful, but you're trying me. And she started yelling at him. It really wasn't a yell, but she was like, come at me.
Yeah.
That's a good moment. That was actually a good episode for season 4, with Saw and Mon Mothma are like debating their tactics, and it's like Mon Mothma's like you killed. I forgot what Saw did that got her angry. Like you killed children or something. I think
is that he threatened the Geonosian egg and all that.
No, that was a different one. Season 4.
Yeah, maybe
maybe attack civilians, and Saw's like, the Empire is not going to play by the rules of warfare. They're going to do whatever it takes to win, and we gotta do the same. And they're like the big debate over that. I like her moment with Ezra in season 4, where Ezra's like, I want to help Lothal. But then, my mom was like, well, where do we start, really? Like, we have a whole galaxy. Even my world's been occupied by the Empire, and I can't do anything about it. So, where do we begin? That was a good one as well. I love all her moments in Rogue One, to be honest. So, Matthew, what about you? Have any favorite moments from screen that you like from Mon Mothma?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite moment I mentioned before on the Ghost Bridge. That speech, and that's interesting. It's still a story laden moment, even if it's a soliloquy, if it's her laying out her beliefs. But the audacity, it's spine tingling goosebumps, of her ability to say, this is over for me. The Empire is over for me. I'm not going to participate in any of its systems now. That I'm going to get into a moment where that's kind of iffy, but giving up the privilege and security of being an Imperial Senator, like we'll see with Andor, of being under the radar and causing trouble just behind the scenes. She steps out and she starts causing trouble in front of the scenes and says, we need to actually remake the galaxy as safe and hopeful and freeing liberal, free for everyone. That's what free for everyone. And prosperous for everyone. And the Empire ain't it. And so I'm gonna go and we're gonna form this alliance. And she picks her moment, like you're saying. She's tactical about it. There is enough. I mean, that's the point of the Rebel Alliance. Is there's the critical mass just at the moment where the Empire is at its height with the Death Star. There's the critical mass of star systems slipping through Tarkin's fingers.
I've always found.
So I just and so there's that. I do want to make your point, and then I want to get back to one question I have for both of you. But go for it, Joel.
Well, you're talking about systems. This is something I've always found about the Rebel Alliance, like a very fascinating way that Star Wars has done this, where it's like, it's an odd thing where it's like you have this mass rebel movement against fascism, and yet it's led by former senators. It'd be like, if our country eventually does go full on fascist, and then it's like, what if one of our senators decide, you know what, we're gonna form an armed rebellion against it? It'd be like, well, it's not like a workers' revolution. It's like, here's like Senator Bernie Sanders declaring the Rebel Alliance. I'm using real world things here. It's sort of my. Again, I don't want to say like Mon Mothma is like a centrist, kind of Joe Biden-ish kind of senator. I think he's definitely a lot more than that, but it's sort of like she's still a senator. She still has the privilege. Saw Gerrera is more like a typical worker kind of, kind of looking into that kind of lens of kind of real world revolution. And again, Star Wars is sci-fi fantasy romanticized revolution. So
True.
yeah, you can't take it completely seriously. But in terms of like the mechanics of it all, I've always found that sort of fascinating and just kind of a way to look at it.
So this gets to my question for both of you, and because we're talking, this is all about, this whole episode is about what leading up to Andor and Mon Mothma's whole life and thinking and work in this time period. So it culminates, I mean, in her renouncing her Senate seat en route to the meeting. But before that, I've always found this curious. You know, in Rogue One, she's briefing Jin on this mission to get evidence of the Death Star, and the most curious moment is her plan is for Bail, who is still senator, of course, to bring evidence of the Death Star to the Senate for testimony. And you know, and that seems to be the kind of the at least the intermediate goal. I'm sure there's a larger kind of PR goal of getting the galaxy to turn against the Emperor, but still there is this intermediate step of using the Senate, the Imperial Senate. I have some questions for you, or one question for you guys. Is it's two possibilities here? I see two possibilities. So the either way, you know, she's opposed to Saw Gerrera and his just utter rejection of the system. That's the thing. She's more compromised than him. Do you think in that moment and leading up to Andor and everything, but especially now that there is evidence of the Death Star, that the Senate could possibly bring any meaningful accountability to the Emperor?
Oh, I got it.
Or is this some last gasp attempt to use what we've got before she says no, even the Senate is done?
So I kind of have a theory on this.
Okay.
I've always felt that in many ways, I think we underestimate the Senate. You know, Palpatine needs to be legitimate from somewhere, right? He can't, again, I've always said that he can't just like declare himself, I'm the Emperor now. Zippity zap, everyone does what I say.
Yeah, and that's true for authoritarian systems in our real world too, by the way.
I do know. The Senate gives him that legitimacy, and the Death Star's whole point is finally something to supersede that legitimacy and then be the thing that's like, now you do what I say, and I'll blow you guys up, and I'll dissolve. You know, that's why the Senate gets dissolved, and the regional governors now have direct control over their territories, and fear will keep the local systems aligned. Fear is battle station. Mon Mothma's hopes that, like, by showing the Senate, you know, she can really destabilize the imperial legitimacy. Like, even Tarkin says, you know, if the Senate gets wind of our project, then countless systems will flock to the rebellion. Like, Tarkin knows this. They know that if they have the Death Star revealed and they're not ready, then a lot of the galaxies know what they're going to do, and they're going to be mad, and they're going to do something about it. So, you know, Palpatine, you know, again, he's kind of like slowly consolidating power, slowly chipping away at the legitimacy of the Senate and just whatever safeguards were ever left as he kind of integrates the galaxy more and more. The idea of like planetary sovereignty just kind of goes out the window.
Yeah.
And it's just one imperial army. And, you know, maybe Mon Mothma's hope is like, we can show the galaxy, hey, this is what the Empire's doing. Get ready, people. Revolt now. And then, you know, have them, you know, even if they don't, even probably like ignore a vote or anything, like the genie's out of the bottle. Let's you know, but obviously that doesn't happen, and you know, Palpatine dissolves the Senate. But Jordan, what do you think of all my of these thoughts?
I mean, maybe put the question another way: is she still willing to use the system, or is this a last gasp attempt before she is on her way out?
I think I don't know. That's a tough question to answer. I think it was I think it was a last ditch effort. You know, yes, the Imperial Senate served its purpose, but like anyone who's everyone knows who's really in charge. Anyone who's everyone knows what happened and how they became in charge. So it's like, I mean, people were going to flock to the rebellion regardless of if they found out about the super weapon or not. That's just kind of how I see it. Yeah, I mean, she should have left a long time ago before that's stupid.
Yeah,
I think Andor might answer that question of why she didn't.
Yeah,
Well, to be honest, because it seems like I think Mon Mothma knows she has to leave one day, but I think like it depends on how Andor portrays it. But I don't know if Mon Mothma really is in denial about thinking the Senate can actually do anything of interest.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Mon Mothma knows that for now, it's better to be in the Senate, have all those connections, kind of see what the Empire is up to from within as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, start. Hey, you guy who called Andor, that one dude, Stellan Skarsgård's character, whose name I forget. Go see who those little rebel cells in the galaxy. I have maps.
Yeah.
And just sort of like that, because at the end of the day, but back to my thing about institutions. The Republic is the Alliance is essentially the government in exile. That's why she becomes the Chancellor of the Rebel Alliance. And now to move on to paper canon and paper canon post Endor. Once the Emperor's dead, the Republic Senate is like the first thing on the agenda is like, nope, time to restore the Republic. That was our goal. And in terms of paper canon, and I think in terms of canon in the timeline of Out of Universe, if I'm remembering correctly, she becomes the Chancellor, and this is Mon Mothma's first appearance, continuing that specter of Mon Mothma is the leader of the New Republic for quite a long time, because she is obviously the one with the most legitimacy and the kind of the unifier of this very hectic republic.
Yeah, I mean, what really emerges in this time, and we did have a list of her appearances on paper until Endor. I mean, mentioned Princess of Alderaan, contingency plan. I'll just blow through them, and then I'll get to Endor to Jakku. Contingency plan, a short story by Alexander Freed in the A New Hope from a certain point of view, shows up in Rebel Rising, I believe. There's a really neat personal moment with a very drunk Thane Tyrell in Lost Stars. And then, as we mentioned in comics, she's in the background as part of Rebel leadership. She's often preserving institutional continuity and coherence, or, as we mentioned above, she's concerned about optics. The after Endor to Jakku is where, even starting with Princess and the Scoundrel, there is this tension as Leia and Han and so many others are still struggling to get out of war mode. And this will be an interesting moment later. Struggling to, I mean, and understandably, they're the boots on the ground. They're still, minds are still in, there's going to be an enemy that's going to fire at us. So it's hard. I mean, that's why it's hard for Leia to go on her honeymoon, in part. Right? Oh, we still have an empire to take care of here. Mon Mothma, building up from everything we've seen before, and the reason I asked that question before, her eyes are on this, building this new republic very clearly, very soundly. There's even a moment, I believe it's in Life Debt, where Leia is still in rebellion mode, in war mode, and considering military priorities, and Mothma has to say, okay, but we're actually building a government now. I can even hear Mark Thompson's voice because I listen to the audio. We're building a government, and that is a very different task from fighting a rebellion. It's one that Mothma is far more suited to, far more adept at. One that Leia is suited to, but clearly later on, there's obviously going to be these tensions between whoever is in charge, Villachem or whoever is in charge on Hosnian Prime, and this First Order threat out there. There's clearly, we see through the Wendig trilogy, there's clearly this patience and this need to play the political game again, because she's actually building the system, building this new constitution. Interesting moment, two moments that are kind of curious about it, and then we'll get to some more thoughts. I'll let you guys jump in here. Two things that stand out in the Wendig trilogy especially is when her and I believe Leia, they meet with Masamita, and Masamita is like, I'm going to surrender the Empire to you. And by the Empire, he means the handful of kids and I guess bureaucrats in Coruscant that don't actually have any power or influence anymore, right? Because really it's with Sloane and with Rax and everyone going out to Jakku and amassing on Jakku and everything going on with Operation Cinder. So she's able to see here. She has this possible false piece in her hand that she says, "Nope, go back, actually get some power, then come back to me when you have something to offer." That was a brilliant moment. Interestingly, the new Senate is, I mean, are they're not just in I mean, here's the other extreme. They're not just in war mode, they're in let's not do this empire thing again mode. And let's not have a standing army, and let's not just invade planets left, right, and center. Let's have a rotating capital. That's cool. Of course, it starts on Chandrilla conveniently. But the plot of Empire's End is really Mothma needing, knowing that the Empire is the remnant of the Empire is massing on Jakku. Something's going on out there, and they need the Senate to go and strike now. I'm going to tap my computer. Got to actually go fight. Like Padme, I will not defer. We're going to resolve this attack on the galaxy sovereignty now. And there's like 2 or 3 failed votes in the Senate to actually send the strike force to Jakku. That finally then gets approval. But she definitely doesn't presume. I mean, that's the interesting thing. Contrast with Rogue One, with Rogue One, the flight team, they go, and then Radis goes, and Mothma smiles, and okay, that's needed in the present, in that moment. In this moment, you need the Senate to approve this attack, to raise an army, to raise a fleet, to go and deal with. Even though they have the rebel fleet there, they need to actually go and approve it. So, yeah, I mean, she faces these tensions. She faces these the mess of democracy, the fact that you can't actually control everything that happens, and clearly part of her maybe does want to control some more, doesn't want to, but that's the thing with Mon Mothma, and this whole theme is she sits between, and you talk about her being a moderate or not. She's not a centrist in terms of the Empire is good.
Right.
She's a bit more of a centrist in between, say,
blow it all up.
Yeah, like blow, Saw Gerrera, blow everything up. And I'm sure there are folks in the Senate who are all let's just work for change, but we'll still be loyal to the Empire. I'm sure we can think of folks like that. Probably like Ray Sloan or Santa Ray or whoever. Probably even Versio, Admiral Versio. Folks like that. No, she sees the big picture in ways that I think other folks don't. She's able to see the implications of everything in a way other folks don't. And to Jordan, that comes back to why she is the queen. She is the chancellor.
Well, let's put it a little into a real world perspective. This is why Star Wars is a science fiction. It's fiction. If you actually look at a lot of revolutions, a lot of their political leaders always die before like a government steady, and the guys who always take over are the military people. Yeah,
and they make it worse.
And they make it worse. It's like it's never the politicians or the philosophers or it's always the military guys, because obviously those are the ones you need to get done. It's like being a good senator does not make you being a good revolutionary doesn't make you a good governor. Like if Saw Gerrera becomes the chancellor, I don't think you're gonna know. I don't think he'll know anything what to do. Just we blow ourselves up now. I don't know. We're the system. What do we do? Not even Admiral Akbar, who's probably a lot more nicer than Saw Gerrera, would know how to run a country, let alone do. So this is sort of the romanticism of revolution in Star Wars by having Mon Mothma make it through the whole thing and kind of being the more calming political leader that you need to establish whatever comes next, because something always comes next. But it's just going to be better, it's going to be worse. Who knows?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I mean, that's the thing. J. James and Ryan Johnson and everyone else. I mean, showing Claudia Gray I mean, a few decades later, they're still working this out. Obviously, it's only been a few decades. There's these kind of imperial, not sympathizers in the centrist. I'm talking about bloodline. There's folks who are less worried about being kind of like the Empire than folks who are more worried about it. And yeah, so
yes. But do we want to? Is there anything else about Mon Mothma? I feel like we've talked quite a bit about our queen, our chancellor.
All hail the queen.
All hail the queen. There we go.
That's it. Nothing else needs to be said.
Exactly. Well, but yes, what to expect from Andor? I guess we can do one more thing. Yes, that is the one more thing. I'm excited. I'm curious to see kind of what she does in the Imperial Senate and like why she's still there. I have a feeling it's not because she thinks she can, pass a nice little reform bill. Yes, I'm excited about Coruscant too. I hope we see Mas Amedda in the Coruscant Senate scene. That'd be cool because he's kind of supposed to be the head of the Senate while Palpatine's doing his dark side stuff. Just kind of see, what Mon Mothma actually thinks she's accomplishing. Because I don't think, again, she's going to be past the make the Empire nicer bill. It's going to do anything about that. So I'm going to see kind of how she politics and gets all these rebel cells together to make a cohesive organization. But Jordan, what about you? What do you want to see from Mon Mothma and Andor?
Coruscant, definitely. I second that. Diego Luna, who's very nice to look at, is a plus. Always appreciated.
That is your personality, by the way. Just kidding.
I can't wait to meet K2SO. I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't care. I want it now.
Yeah. There we go.
That's my personality.
There we go. Fair enough.
Matthew, what about you? What do you want?
I think kind of when you're talking about seeing Coruscant, seeing whatnot, I want to see more about just how the Senate works and how the Senate works in the time of the Empire. Right. Let's explore that whole question of how much does it try and have, how much do senators, how much does the Senate as an institution try and bring some accountability to the emperor? How much does it prop him up, and is the means by which, just like I was saying before, every totalitarian state in our time, yes, they have the army is what really props them up, but in order to actually do things, often constitutionally, they have to have a legislature to pass things through, right? I mean, the Soviet Union had a legislature that they had to pass things through. The Nazis, they still had the Reich, the
Reichstag.
They still had the Reichsrat,
the Enabling Act.
The Enabling Act, but even just to levy taxes and supplies and to in propaganda to continue to fund their machine. That's true. I mean, even in Yugoslavia and in Chile and elsewhere, they still had to have a legislature to give this constitutional semblance of democracy, constitutional semblance of legitimacy, and common consensus. In fact, they use terms like common consensus. So, I'll be very curious to see that, and then with Mon Mothma, how much she does that personally, how much she kind of has to go along. We know Bail goes along. I forget, is this in the Revenge of the Sith novelization or in different places where Bail talks about having to go along with with the new Empire.
Just Padme in the Revenge of the Sith novelization.
Was Padme, okay. Yeah, I guess kind of advising that. I mean, I feel like Bad Batch has gone into that maybe a little bit. I'm not too sure. Maybe my memory is kind of fuzzy. I know we've had people talk about, okay, on the front we're gonna have to on the surface we're gonna have to go along, but finding ways under the surface to, like I said, cause trouble. So very curious to see that, and then her relationship with Saw and with Cassian and with the more seedier aspects of the Rebel Alliance. Seeing maybe, this is before that step with Saw we saw in Rebels. And so, is there, I mean, certainly the widening gulf, the gulf is widening, but how do they cooperate in this period as well? And so, yeah, all these questions, like I said at the beginning, excited the Andor is going to really commit to answering these and addressing these things. So that, and also one last thing, maybe to say, the eye to, to what comes next, what comes after. Does she talk about, hint at things even? And this is me thinking in terms of real world Lucasfilm production, hinting at what the New Republic story is in the Mandoverse, because we know she's still thinking about that in this period as well. Just what comes after a rebellion. Like the contingency short story is all about what comes next.
Right. And also, and I don't want to talk about it too much because Matthew will be here all day, but like, how does Mon Mothma look upon the High Republic era? And I'm sure she gets a lot of inspiration from that.
If there's a mention, if there's a nod, if there's like dropping Lena So in there, dropping Jorah Malley and Avar Kriss in there, that would blow my mind.
Surprised that happened in the books.
Yeah, that's true. So fair enough. So Joel, Jordan, do you guys have any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Mon Mothma is a fascinating character, both out of universe and in universe, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of her, and hopefully still played by Genevieve O'Reilly, because I'm so excited she gets to have her due in Star Wars with Andor. It's like yay. Mon Mothma is like going to be a character a lot more people probably will know about soon, so I'm excited.
Jordan, how are you feeling about seeing Mon Mothma on screen?
Amazing.
Yes.
Sorry.
There we go. All good. All right. So that's about time to wrap things up then. Thanks everyone for joining us here on the Eye on Canon podcast on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. If you liked what you saw, feel free to add thoughts in the comments. Thanks to everyone who did do so already. Please give this video a like, a share, and subscribe to the Star Wars Underworld channel if you haven't done so already. Of course, also subscribe, go over to the Eye on Canon YouTube channel. Check that out. Give us a subscription here on Twitch as well. We're right live on Twitch. Working on getting that out. Check us out on Spotify as well. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Ion Canon Pod. Always trying to get into the discussions there. Some interesting things. I'll throw a bit more things from Fan Expo Canada up on the Instagram and the Twitter. And again, of course, Spotify, both our full episodes and Tractor Beam. Joel, also ask you, where can people find you on the social medias?
Well, you can find me at GID 2021, again, GID 2021, where I tweet stuff, but most of the time I'm using our Eye on Canon Twitter to tweet thoughts and stuff about Star Wars, so exciting. Lots of great conversations. Jordan, you got a bunch of things, I think, on the go. Anything, first of all, on social media? I think it's different things. If anything you're willing to share now, or you're going to hold your cards close to your chest, but certainly, we got your Twitter and Instagram handle up there. So start with that if you wish.
Yeah, my TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that's TBluePulsar66, and that's all you're getting out of me today.
All right,
everything else is a surprise and a secret.
Fair enough.
Coming soon to a computer screen near you.
There we go. Right, and again, please do follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Ion Canon Pod and at the SWU. Lots of great Twitter conversations. We're not quite sure what we're going to do next week. We haven't quite gotten that far, and unlike Mon Mothma, we haven't sorted out. But we're gonna figure that part out again.
You guys can just wing it. It's fine.
We'll wing it. I'm halfway through Princess and the Scoundrel, so we'll see where things are there. See where Joel you're out there. But for now, Jordan, Joel, thanks for joining us. I think let's blow this thing and head home.